My name is Robert van Voren. As you see in the program, you know what my background is. I usually organize conferences, I don't moderate, so this is for me a completely new experience in life. So if it becomes a mess, forgive me and don't invite me to moderate again. To start with, I would like to say that I'm really pleased that mental health is so much on the agenda. Many people will not probably remember, but 25 years ago, the World Bank appointed its first mental health advisor, an Australian psychiatrist, Harvey Whiteford. And a lot of people said, why would the World Bank have a mental health advisor? What is the combination between economics and mental health? And maybe you'll remember Harvard University published The Global Burden of Disease, and it was a fat book. And it turned out that psychoneurological ailments were 15% of the so-called DALYs, the disability-affected life years. So we've come a long way. The European Union, for the first time, had a mental health action plan in 2005. So 20 years ago. And now the budget is $1.25 billion. So really big progress. Secondly, we've been talking all the time about resilience. And this panel will also be about resilience. Resilience is not a static thing. We're talking a lot about the resilience of the Ukrainian people during these 3.5 years of war. It is indeed amazing how they are managing to continue. But mind you, they are also extremely tired. And resilience is something that is really affected by what is going on. And I know quite a few people who are so tired that they had to leave the country in order to save themselves. So, Ukraine is a fantastic example, but it is not the end solution. A big change for mental health was COVID. Certainly, lots of people were affected by COVID. It had an enormous impact on mental health care delivery because suddenly therapy had to be given online via Zoom or other networks, which therapists until then thought was not effective. It turns out to be very effective, and it's now widely used. But COVID also showed this lack of understanding. The slogan that was used internationally was social distancing, which was absolutely the fundamentally wrong slogan because especially in times of COVID, you need to have social solidarity. You need physical distancing, but social solidarity. And then the last thing is this whole issue with depression. We're talking about the consequences of how the world is changing. A friend of mine is a therapist in Ottawa at the University of Ottawa. One of the main clients that she has are people working in the climate department because they see the figures, they see the trends, and they are just flabbergasted by how quickly things are changing and not in the positive direction. Okay, that's what I wanted to tell you. Our first speaker is Patrícia Oliveira Silva. She began her academic journey by mapping how the brain processes empathy and social pain. And over time, she found herself just as fascinated by higher education and how universities connect people across cultures as she once was by how neurons connect the brain. She is a neuroscientist by training, global academic by passion, and currently serves as Vice Dean for Global Positioning at the Universidade Católica Portuguesa in Porto. She is strongly committed to international education, works at the intersection of neuroscience, psychology, and higher education, and her passion lies in exploring how our understanding of stress, empathy, and socio-emotional skills can be translated into practical strategies that support higher education in being a force for change. Patrícia, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here, and let me confess that I changed a little bit my presentation now because I thought no one would like to start after lunch talking about other dark side of the reality. And I thought, okay, let's try to talk a little bit in a peaceful way. I will try, I will do my best. But also, my ideas were always a kind of way back to the same point. And that is the title of my presentation. I think that all of us will agree that our ground is shaking, is shifting beneath our feet. Although this is probably the softer way to say this, we have many other strong ways to say. I think it's good to start with a kind of hope about the role of higher education and also the kind of role we have as simple individuals within or without higher education institutions. So I will tell you a little bit about my background. I think it will be important for you to know why I have this perspective. I'm a social neuroscientist, as was said, and my previous 20 years were to explore what is social pain, what is called, unfortunately, as abstract pain. And it's not abstract at all, let me tell you. It's very biological and very, very physical. And when we talk about the lack or the absence of resilience, we are talking about a pain, a very real pain, a pain that probably our students and ourselves have every day. So let's talk a little bit about this. And I would say that when we think about the current reality, we can talk about this seismic point of our lives that could have two different faces. The first one maybe could be a kind of mirror where we see our collective fragilities. We have many fragilities that probably we are only now able to see them. I will invite you as well, in the second part of my presentation, to think about this reality as a kind of horizon where we can see the chance, the opportunity to transform ourselves. We are in Transform for Europe, so let's talk about transformation. And I think higher education needs to transform from time to time. We need to adapt, although we have this important identity to keep with us. And I'm saying this as someone who is truly passionate about higher education and the role we have. But I believe that although we are changing a lot, the kind of mission we have in our sector, the main point, the core point is the same. That is to equip young and not so young people to be able to imagine alternative realities, alternative futures for themselves and for other generations. And this is a point where we can think about this. We can think about, are we able in this moment to equip people, students, to think about different futures, to how to overcome constraints, how to look for a solution, how to try to see something beyond the reality we have at this moment. I will tell you a little bit about this important report. I don't know if you are aware of this. This is from Nature magazines, talking about the future of higher education. I invite everyone to read them. It is very interesting to see that most of our concerns within academia are the same, and how different countries are dealing with this. For instance, most of the authors are talking about the importance of using new technologies to use the kind of concerns and fears. This morning we were talking about fear. From a neuroscientist perspective, we know that stress and fear, in a certain degree, is a kind of force from within. So we can use this unstable attitude and mentality to change something. And what the authors are inviting to do is to think again about the kind of role we have for higher education and try to do what we have done throughout the centuries, trying to adapt and to meet in the middle the new generations. So we have different articles about this, but most of them are talking about something that is a reality for all of us, that we can see that the human experience within and without academia at this moment has been very painful, because we can see the rising of stress, growing loneliness between our students, burnout, a clear sense of belonging to any community, not only for the academic community, and also this less confidence regarding their roles, the future, employability, and the belief that the community, the academic community and the government can do something to change their future. So it's a bombastic combination, right? All of us agree with this. Our instinctive response, at least mine, as someone within the academia, is to say to everyone on every corner of my university, students need to be more resilient. This is the kind of narrative we use every day. But something I think you need to think with me, or I will invite you to think about this, is that resilience is not something that we build alone. Resilience is not only a personal trait, at least from the neuroscience and psychological perspective. To grow resilient, we need to be held. We need to make sure that we have a community that supports us. We need to have people and purposes that are present when we are trying to cope with very difficult situations. So obviously, all of us, as we were talking this morning, we need to be more resilient. But as academics, we need to think, if we are really creating the community, our students need to be more resilient. And not only claiming everywhere that the individual himself needs to be more resilient. It's a very important point, but it's not enough alone. I will tell you a very modest contribution, because one thing that our dear Robert asked us was to not only identify problems, but also try to show a contribution, a small contribution of obviously an ocean of efforts that all of us have had in our own institutions, but to talk a little bit about how can we manage or how can we make efforts within academia to change this reality and to make our communities more and more fertile to grow resilience. This is an international PhD program, and for me it's very important to have this first word, to be international, because I think that today it's not enough to think about our environment alone from our national perspective. We need to see beyond, and I think this is a golden part of this PhD program, is to make sure that all of our students, and here you have some ideas about the activities we have in this PhD program, and a very important one from my perspective is to make sure they have 3 mentors, one from each country. So they are, since the very first day, supervised by a mentor from Portugal, a supervisor from Portugal, another supervisor from the UK, and another one from Spain. And this is a community by itself, right? We are talking about small communities that can know each student very well. It's not someone dealing with hundreds of different students without knowing them very well. And we try to do what we believe that is that fertile ground to grow resilience. Okay, Robert, I'm finishing. Besides this, I will just finish here because I think it will be a pleasure to talk. Hope we have some time to discuss at the end some other aspects that could be interesting for you. But I would like just to tell you, to finish telling you that I have no doubt that all type of crises change us internally, biologically. This is the reality from neuroscience as well. Our brains change. What we try to do to overcome those traumatic experiences, those, let's call in a soft way again, those challenges we have in our experiences, is to reshape them, to give them another narrative, a kind of healthier and something we can cope with, we can support in our future. But there is one aspect that I think we need to be very clear within higher education. As a student myself, I believe I was equipped to think about different futures. And this is what I try to do nowadays, is to share this possibility with my students as well, and to see higher education as this place where we are invited every day with different languages, different scientific areas to do the same. But it's necessary to do this. It's necessary to prepare students, from my perspective, to do what probably we lose at the end of their staying within our academia, to make them prepared not to be afraid facing difficulties, not being afraid when they need to deal with uncertainties, but to be prepared to rebuild that, to rebuild the reality. And more important, to face complexity with a certain degree of confidence, because this is what we need to create resilience. This is the basic and the foundation of a resilient person. It's not fearing about complexity and challenges, but it's prepared to see this as another bump, another way to overcome a difficulty, because we know we will have other situations to deal with, and they will have personal aspects. It's very important to talk about individual needs and how they can be demanding for a higher education institution to deal with so many different needs. But it's very important to put our attention in those which we know are very important tools to succeed. So, thanks a lot. It is a pleasure to bring this empathetic perspective for you. I hope it's a good way to start this journey in this session without so much dark realities for us, but it's also a way to bring hope for our perspectives. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrícia. I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, Tanja Michael. She is professor of clinical psychology and psychotherapy at Saarland University in Germany, studied psychology in Braunschweig, and completed her PhD at the University of Oxford as a Wellcome Trust Scholar. Before joining Saarland University in 2009, she held a research position at the University of Basel. And her research focuses on trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, and resilience, with a particular interest in the psychological effects of violence and societal crisis. She published widely in international journals and is actively involved in science communication and policy-oriented mental health initiatives. Tanja? Not yet. I can say a little bit more about you. You lead currently several interdisciplinary projects on mental health promotion, including digital care for military personnel, support for victims of violence, and school-based interventions to strengthen resilience in adolescents.
Nearly there.
Not yet?
But
yes,
I think it's
good.
Coming. Okay, thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here. So I would like to start to put a bit of a framework. When we talk about psychological resilience, what are we talking about? Like Robert has said, mental health is quite complex and quite important because a lot of people do have ill mental health. But a lot of people have good mental health, and then a lot of people have everything in between. So you have, you're well, but not so well, a little bit unwell. And I'm doing, as Robert has said, a lot of trauma research, but I'm not talking about that because that's a different thing when people have been traumatized, soldiers who had been in war, or women who have been sexually brutalized. That's different things than what we are talking here, I think, in this conference about when we talk about resilience, because what these people need is something else than how we can build up resilience in people who are facing some adversity, but not like these really stressful, traumatic events, like gross interpersonal violence. So, and first of all, when we talk about resilience, I really want to make the point, what is resilience? So the most basic definition of resilience is the ability of adapting successfully in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, or any other significant threat. Okay, that says a lot and not so much at the same time, because resilience could then be a trait, it could be an outcome, it could be a state, or it could be all of this. So it's a huge debate in the resilience community what it is. And what we definitely know now that is resilience is not a fixed trait. What we mean by that, it's not like another fixed trait, like personality factors, like some people are extrovert, and they probably stay more or less extrovert all their life. With resilience, it's not like this. It's not that you're born as a resilient person and stay resilient all over your life, or you are unlucky and you're not born as a resilient person and then you'll never be resilient. There are some biological and genetic factors even in resilience, but there are more environmental factors in resilience. And resilience is really something that we can learn. There's a hope in this as well, and something that we can shape together. So we have done, like I just put a brief spot view of our own research. We have done lots of network analysis about resilience as well. And so resilience, as we understand it, is really a network of interrelated concepts. But two of these factors really stand out as very central in this resilience network. One is sense of coherence, and which means that life is comprehensible, manageable, and meaningful for people, and self-efficacy. That means that one has a own ability to handle things, to cope with things successfully. And together these two form really the pillar of resilience. Longitudinal analysis also show that resilience both predicts current well-being as future stability, even though these factors that are examined in resilience research, they are much better in predicting actually sustained well-being than a quick recovery to adversity. So I've already said that sense of coherence and self-efficacy are important, and what we seem to be seeing in our data is that they really act as stabilizers. They are buffering us against daily stressors and help us to maintain balance. But then there are a lot of other factors like optimism, flexibility, and supportive environments as well that build bridges in this resilience networks. So resilience is really like a self-regulating system that helps us to maintain our mental equilibrium. Okay, and now I would like to talk a bit about young people. We have already talked a lot of young people, but we in the Saarland, we have done one of the biggest studies in Europe actually on how young people are doing at the moment. I only have the data from 22 and 23. So it really started, or I had the idea for the study during the pandemic because I'm also the head of our outpatient unit, and the need for mental health care during the pandemic seemed sheer endless, especially for young people. So I negotiated with our local government to have a Saarland-wide study in schools. So we had more than 4,000 pupils taking part of it in 3 times, so it's a longitudinal one. And here, really only very brief glimpse of some of the results. But in 2022, 39 of the students, like between 14 and 17, they had clinically relevant symptoms of depression. So this was not a clinical diagnosis, but a questionnaire. But this questionnaire that we use has very high criterion validity, which means that the chances that these pupils actually, if they would meet a trained clinician, would get a diagnosis of depression is really high. And depression is a very very severe disease. And it's also, people don't grow out of it. No? It's not that young people are feeling a bit depressed and then they grow out of it. It's something that can become chronic and persistent, which causes a lot of personal sufferings, but also it's very difficult for society because people who are depressed, they participate less in societal life. We know that they are hardly participating in political life, they don't go voting because they have fatigue, they're not well, they're not interested. So to build strong and resilient societies or democracies with a huge number of people who are depressed, it's very difficult. And they're anxious as well, and they had low quality of life as well. And in 2023, the symptoms rose even slightly. We saw no sign of recovery, and I just looked before the conference and the data from 2024, and they don't look any better. So basically what we see is that there's a persistent decline in emotional well-being among young people after years of overlapping crises. And we know that their mental health has deteriorated because we use questionnaires that have been used in Europe and Germany before the crisis, and our rates are much, much higher than what we have seen before. We took the opportunity in the Cochin study as well to look at external crises like the pandemic, but also then the war in Ukraine had started and the climate crisis. And we asked the pupils how stressed you are. And you see, like with the pandemic in 22, 60% of the pupils still said they were strongly distressed about consequences of the pandemic. 25 in Germany, this is sort of quite far away from Ukraine, still said they were strongly stressed about the war in Ukraine, and 17 said they were strongly stressed about the climate crisis. And when you put that in a model and predict symptoms, we have seen that this distress about the crisis predicts independently incremental variance on why people are not well. So obviously you have the socioeconomic status, which predicts, and gender predicts, and other things, personal distress, like when your parents are alcoholic or something like that. Yeah, but these crises really do predict as well that people are not well. So in the Cochin study, we have also seen that self-efficacy, like with the adult studies, and emotional flexibilities, they are protective factors, but they don't buffer all of these effects. So my conclusion, nearly on time, is that global crises continue to weigh heavily on mental health in adults, but especially in young people, and that we should definitely make an effort in strengthening psychological resilient factors like self-efficacy or flexibility. But these mental health interventions, they also need be surrounded by societal support and political measures, because obviously, like if we can live in peace or without a threat to our climate, people would need to have fewer of these psychological resilience factors. So obviously my task as a psychologist is maybe to look at the individual part, but there's a huge part what we as a society, politicians also have to achieve, that people can build their individual resilience. So the next step is like, that's something we are doing. Like my work group, we have achieved a huge grant, 6 million euros, that we can take to schools and try to train pupils in resilience. And if that's not enough, if they have severe mental health problems, we also treat them. But here at this conference, I thought, because I have for a long time this idea that it would be really important to look at mental health of young people, students across Europe, and how these different crises affects different European populations. And then I've heard from Lukas Redemann that there might be even a framework in this Transform for Europe Alliance that we can achieve something like that, to build something like that together. So I'm interested in that. If somebody else would be willing to do this type of research, please get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tanja. Our next speaker is Donatas Palauskas. He works at the Ignitis Group as the head of diversity, inclusion, and well-being. He's an expert in gender equality, diversity, and inclusion. He's a lecturer and an author of several books. Donatas.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, you do. So I'm going to speak today quickly, as possible, on how Ignitis Group discovered resilience 2 or 3 years ago, before it was cool. And Ignitis Group is, for Lithuanian audience, quite well-known name and brand. We are a company that, simply put, provides electricity, gas, builds solar and wind energy parks in Lithuania and abroad. And we are a community of around 5,000 people, employees. So I would say we are huge in Lithuania. And by being huge, I mean that we are also facing sometimes, from time to time, huge challenges and issues as any other big organization. That's why resilience is something that we need, like, on a daily basis. We also have this purpose that we came up with 3 years ago, I guess. And it's about creating 100% green and secure energy ecosystem for future and current generations. And when I look, every time I look at this 100%, it kind of frightens me, because it's 100%, not 99, not 98, meaning that, you know, you have to be devoted for that purpose to achieve that. You have to truly be like into it and motivated by it and identify with it, so that, you know, as a community we would eventually reach that 100%. And that's why, again, resilience is what we need as air we breathe. But resilience came into our focus in particular 2 years ago, when we had very complicated situations, some would say crisis, 3 crises at the same time. One of them was when there was energy crisis, prices got up, and as a result people were angry, desperate, because, you know, electricity bills got extremely crazy. And they would go to our clients' service centers, and they would, you know, express their anger to our people. These situations got out of control, and we had to, you know, make some very serious decisions, like providing on-the-spot mental health for our employees, so they could eventually, you know, continue working in our company. So that was one crisis. We also got, that year, in 2023, we got heavy snows and storms. This means that our people had to, like, during those heavy storms, when electricity grids would be damaged by the snow and the falling trees, our people would go, whenever that is needed, would go into different locations, into the woods, into the snow, as in this picture, and would, you know, fix the grid, recover the grid so that everyone can have electricity. And that was a challenge because, you know, the pressure is huge from the clients to ensure that electricity, you know, is coming back very fast. The third kind of complicated situation / crisis was when our people would change those old meters into smart meters, electricity meters, and then people, our clients, again, would be, you know, sometimes angry because of this change, wouldn't understand why it is happening, and again, our frontline workers who would go into those locations at people's home, change those smart meters, they would again face not very kind and polite behavior from the clients that we serve. And we came up with this, you know, brilliant idea that, okay, this is a signal that we must work with individual and team resilience in order to function as an organization during hardships. We came up with this, at that time we thought it's very sophisticated. Now I look and don't see that sophistication, but it's quite simple scheme. We call it Program Wellbeing for Resilience Program that kind of put in place all those efforts that we're trying to do when building our employee resilience. And in this model, we are trying to prepare our employees for challenges. And we do that by, you know, creating a sense of purpose, encouraging positive outlook, creating these coping skills, organizing trainings and support networks. Then we encourage employees to use those skills during those crises, but whenever it's needed, we have support, emotional support, team facilitation sessions, crisis management teams. We have a mental health hotline, so everything by their side in case there is a specific help needed. And we started monitoring our resilience, and from the very first day we started monitoring using 4 questions in the employee experience survey. We noticed that our employees are very resilient. I mean, they are almost made of steel. If you look at those blue bubbles there, there's this, every bubble represents a team, and they're allocated according to their resilience level. And we saw that the majority of our teams are perfect, almost, right? And only parts of these bubbles, which are darker, represents those teams that, you know, are of a lower resilience, and they particularly, they need our support. And we started providing this resilience support specifically for those teams that needs them. So yeah, and the very last thing I want to say is that, you know, that was 2 or 3 years ago. Current situation that we're talking about, the crisis that is happening now, showed us another angle of resilience, and we put all those future scenarios which are truly negative. Tanja was telling about positivity as a kind of competence for resilience. There is nothing positive here, I'm sorry, but the future for us is gloomy, and that's why we need to be ready for that future, whatever will happen. So we are preparing now for this kind of future, but we, I think, eventually get more positivity on that. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Donatas. Our last speaker is Lana. She is president of the European Students' Union for the 2025-2026 mandate. She has been actively involved in the student movement for over 5 years, beginning as president of the Student Council at the University of Rijeka. She is, as a member of the Croatian Students' Council, she engaged in national and European level advocacy on a wide range of student issues, and she now focuses on advancing the European education area and strengthening the organizational development and capacity building. Lana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and I apologize. To make sure that my presentation works. Thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation, and it's truly my pleasure to be here and to speak on behalf of the students. And actually, to begin this, I would like to use this opportunity where I'm behind cathedra, behind the microphone, to ask you a question. So, work hard, study, focus, dream big. If you work hard enough, you can make all of your dreams come true. You need to work hard, so you have good grades, you can enroll in the university, study what you want, then when you get your degree, you will get a great job, work on your career, you will have fruitful and successful life. Who believes that this is true? Can you raise your hands? Okay. And others don't? Yeah, I see some heads going like this among students and younger population, and unfortunately, I'm very sorry to tell you this, but for young people in this economy, in this economic situation, this sounds more like wishful thinking than the future that awaits us. I know it's a bit depressing, but unfortunately, I'm here to also speak about these issues. And let me just ask you a question. What were your thoughts, your wishes, your dreams when you were in your 20s during your studies? If someone wants to answer. Maybe people from the panel. There is no wrong answer. If someone wants to share. Making impact? Make the world better. Yes. And I assume it was also connected to stability, to maybe having a family or a pet that you like and planting some flowers in a garden, etc. And unfortunately, for young people today, with everything going on in the world, we heard in the previous panels, this is something that we are getting more and more scared to dream of. So first, the global pandemic hit. It drew people away. Social distancing also meant that a lot of students that are at universities today, they were in high schools, beginning the high school, they were in the period of their life when puberty hits and you want to spend time with your friends and you want to go out, you want to hang out, you want to, maybe do something stupid that your parents will get mad at you, but that's also part of growing up. That's how we learn, that's how we make mistakes, and that's also what forms us as people. And unfortunately, for a lot of these day students, this part of their growing up, their childhood, was taken away from them. And that's still visible in their interactions, causing a lot of anxiety, causing difficulties making connections. And after that, when we were witnessing the beginning of the war in Ukraine, but also now the democracy on fire, the climate crisis, crisis all over us, crisis on global level, the levels of insecurities, it feels like we just cannot take a breath. It feels like it's very difficult to breathe, to navigate through this, and to actually recover and get back on track, to follow the path where we work hard and when we put a lot of effort and then our dreams do come true. And let me talk a bit about well-being. So it is a positive state experienced by individuals and societies. Similar to health, it is a resource for daily life and it is determined by social, economic, and environmental conditions. Well-being encompasses quality of life and the ability of people and societies to contribute to the world with a sense of meaning and purpose. Impact, we can also say. And what do you think, what is the situation of the well-being of young people, of students today? I just want to share with you a couple of graphs from Eurostudent publication. So this graph shows share of students with low sense of well-being. So it's more than a half students across the Europe that report that their sense of well-being is very low. Also in years where everyone tells you it's the best period of your life, you're a student, you need to be happy, there is nothing to worry about. And students feel a lot of isolation. They feel isolated from different groups, from family and partners, from friends, from people, from others in general. And there is also a big percentage of them who feel very high levels of isolation from their fellow students, which also affects how they feel at the universities. And of course, that can be connected to the financial difficulties and financial situation of students. We can see that when it comes to students with financial difficulties, they are more prone to feel the lower sense of well-being and wellness and happiness in general. And in the context of the Alliance, this also affects a lot students who come for exchanges, students who study in different countries, etc., because for them it's even more difficult to adjust and to take a breath. And finally, almost a third of students report a mental health problem. Most often it is depression and anxiety disorder. And now I don't have a PhD and I didn't write books yet, but I actually did my thesis on biology of mental illness, learning about the importance and connection of both environmental factors and genetic factors when it comes to developing mental illnesses. And unfortunately, the situation for all of the young people with genetic predisposition in this situation is not very bright. And this is a very serious problem that we should all tackle together. Another thing that surrounds us more and more, it's disinformation, fake news, the rise of racism, of Islamophobia, of anti-Semitism. And unfortunately, all of this is also spilling to our university campuses. We have also rise in reports from students that they don't feel safe at the university campuses. And I would also like to maybe quote myself from yesterday. So we focus a lot on the importance of debate, of critical thinking, of facts, which is of course important, but it also kind of feels that we forgot about dialogue and the importance of dialogue, importance of listening, of hearing other perspectives, and going into the world and through the world with that in mind. With other people's perspective, with trying to understand each other, not debating just to win, but debating, listening, and having a dialogue to understand each other better. Because that's the only way how we can ensure that our universities, but also our societies, are inclusive places where everyone feels welcome and safe. So, what do we do now? Of course, part of my answer is more work on mental health and focus on mental health of students. By mainstreaming mental health in higher education, because mental health and well-being are basic human rights, not privileges. And student well-being is essential, both for their academic success, but also for personal growth and for their resilience. It enables them to overcome challenges and daily stressors, but also to develop effective coping strategies and reaching their full potential. And in broader perspective, we don't see it as an isolated issue. To really, truly overcome it, it connects. It connects to teaching and assessment methods, to curricula design, to housing and social life of students, online and digital learning environments, but also to staff well-being and institutional culture. So our recommendation, and you can also find our report on students' mental health, our students' mental health charter, which was based on the findings that we did amongst the students during the pandemic. It's whole institution approach, where mental health is everyone's responsibility across the universities. And to truly achieve that, it's also necessary to train academic and administrative staff, but also peer supporters, and to identify early warning signs. Also to integrate mental health awareness and resilience building into curricula and orientation programs, but also extracurricular activities and student life activities, and to constantly evaluate and improve. So when it comes to resilience in whole, although the name of this panel is individual resilience, I would still reaffirm that I believe that resilience is a group effort. It cannot be done individually. And what students need, when it comes to resilience and success is also connected to a feeling of ownership. When you ask young students today how they feel with everything going on in the world globally, the answer they most often give us is powerless. So to actually have students that are resilient and to build the resilience, we need to reaffirm this belief in them that they can shape their own future, that we can shape our own future. So how do we help students rebuild that sense of agency? I have a couple of answers. First of them, and the beginning would be encouragement. By creating university environments that nurture hope and belonging, because that's what we're missing. And every student should feel seen, supported, and valued, because resilience, it's not just about being tough alone. It's about having connections, purpose, and a belief that you matter. Universities, we need them not to be only centers of knowledge, but also spaces for personal growth and lifelong learning, meaning helping students develop future-proof skills like adaptability, creativity, critical thinking, but also let's not forget about developing empathy, skills that will let them thrive in a world that will keep changing. And most importantly, I would say, students need to believe that they are part of the solution. The goal is not only to have graduates who can merely survive crisis, but people who can transform them, who see themselves as active citizens that are capable of leading communities and rebuilding trust when it's lost. So my final message would also be to universities. We need universities that are communities where students don't just learn about the world as it is, but gain the courage and also confidence, most importantly, the confidence and the feeling that we believe that we can do it to shape the world as it should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lana. I think this clock is not correct. It's going far too quick. So we have only 6 minutes left for discussion and for questions. I am full of questions, but maybe we can start with the audience. Is there anybody who wants to put questions to one of the speakers? I see one person over there. Please put up your hand. I have only one contact lens. The other one I lost along the way. And there's another one over there. Can we have the first question, please?
Thank you. So this was an example of cooperation, how I got on mic. Thank you for this inspiring presentations. I'm Matilde Fontanet from the library of the University of Trieste. I thought I had listened to some of your presentations, especially the last and the first, was that university should be or is a place not where students are taught how to face the world, but a place where students, staff, academic and administrative staff learn together. And I would like to hear the thoughts of the speakers on the possibility of developing programs that bring about this kind of cross-generation, cross-roles learning, which, because my experience at the university over 30 years, I feel I learned a lot. So I don't know if anybody else shares this kind of vision, and I think some action could be built on that.
Thank you. Who would like to? You have a microphone in your chair.
Yes. Is it working? Yeah. So we do not have, I will not share a specific example, but I will tell you about some rehearsals, let's call like this. And because we need, it's very good to listen to our students saying this, that they would like to be part of the solution, because we have a lot of frustration trying to bring everyone to the table, right? Because we feel that sometimes our initiatives, our brilliant ideas don't resonate on students, don't resonate on academics, don't resonate in one of the actors. And it's very difficult to make sure that we have a space where everyone feel safe enough to think about their own role without a kind of judgment, right? This is the most difficult part of this type of co-creation. I always tell that the most difficult part of our academic activity is to openly co-create solutions, right? Not only bringing to the table what I have done throughout these years as a professor, as a student, as someone in the rector or so on, but to say, let's find a solution together from 0 point. Co-creation is a very key point and very, very difficult to implement. We have tried to do this in some specific boards. I can give you some examples of activities we have done. That's to have representatives from students, representatives from professors, from coordinators of different programs, and trying to work in a specific point, not trying to solve the world problem, trying to work in specific tasks, because this creates the kind of confidence we were talking about and creates something, I think, more important, the culture within the institutions to make us understand that we can collaborate to create solutions. So I think it's very important to be present since the very first moment. This is what we have tried with students, with staff, with people working in security, in the academic services, doesn't matter. Everyone is part of the solution. What is difficult, because we are quite focused on our own task, I'm very focused on assessment, students' enrollment, different degrees of performance and so on. And to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, this is the definition of empathy, is very hard for all of us, right?
Lana, you want to say?
Yes, and thank you very much for the question, and I think it's a really important one, and that's something that we really want to see. And of course, we hear a lot about also when some connections are trying to be made, it's difficult for students to reach out to the administration, but also for the other side to reach out to students. So I think that's something that we all together still need to find the way to work on. But I truly believe, and I want to believe, because after the first part of today, I felt a bit gloomy, I have to say, not a bit, a lot. And the time that we're living in, it's very unpredictable, and it also changes very fast. But something that keeps me going and keeps a lot of young people going is, I believe, the wish that we want to change things, that we're not happy with how things are, but it's not enough just not to be happy, because that's not how you can actually change something. There is a lot of people who are not happy, who are angry, but I think that's also the key for universities to reach out to students and to use that to work together on common goals. We also hear a lot that young people are not interested in politics, or there is a lot of apathy amongst young people, etc. I don't agree. I strongly disagree with it, because all over Europe, we can see student movements that are really strong. We can see a lot of student protests, students being very vocal about the things that are bothering them, climate, societal issues, corruption, you name it. Students are active, students do care, but students are disappointed in politics. That's also the thing we have to understand. And it hurts a lot for me as a young person to hear people on the television and people in the suits talking about the military service, for example, and why young people think that that's beneath them. I think that's a really wrong approach, because young people don't want to fight wars they didn't start. We want to plan our future, we want to plant flowers, we want to think about having families or pets and working on our careers. We just started living. So young people have opinions, they have a lot to say, and they're active in the societies. The goal is to find a way to communicate and to bridge these bridges together, to have this cooperation that was kind of lost, I feel, also with the pandemics, because I started studying in 2019, so just before the pandemics, it hit after my second semester. And after that, I got more engaged in student association and student council, and I could see that there was far less students that were coming to the organized activities, etc. So that's still work in progress, but that's also connected to the effects and mental health and well-being and anxiety that is really high amongst young people. And I will stop now.
No, I think it's very important to hear your voice. So if it's okay with you, I would like to have the second question still. I'll steal a few minutes.
Hello, thank.
Mic doesn't work.
Let's try again.
Okay.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for very important words shared on the stage. My question is concerned with this paradoxical state that we're in, titled polycrisis or permacrisis. I'm wondering about your thoughts and in terms of mental health and resilience building when there's like many things going on at the same time. I'm from Vytautas Magnus University, and we're curating various projects with climate change and climate crisis. And when you're focused on this particular issue, okay, you start feeling agency, and really, like, you can notice students feel empowered. But then you shift your attention towards anything else around the world, and there's like many things crumbling down in the same time. I'm wondering like how to mitigate that, or is that even necessary? Maybe according to your research, one type of like direction or vector of change is enough for a person to feel empowered and have better kind of outcomes in terms of well-being and mental health. So yeah, just polycrisis.
Tanja, for you?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. It's an extremely valid one, because I think that's exactly the problem. We have so many different things that seem to be very, very difficult, like the climate challenge, the threat of war, or war already happening. And I think that's, you said it, and I think that's what we see in the data and in our patients. It's this feeling of being helpless, of being powerless, of like not being able to do something about it. And therefore, I think we need, as an individual response, we, as I say now, as older people, we need to learn also to talk about difficult issues. And there are serious issues like the climate crisis, we all know that, to talk about it in a way that takes it seriously, but also being rational about it and not making it more emotional, because that's what people, when resilience goes down, is when people just feel emotionally overwhelmed. They just feel anxiety and more anxiety and more depression, and then what you have is avoidance, and you think, oh my God, now I'm just better not think about it anymore, and then you can't find a solution. And so the thing is, what you've raised the issue is that we need to learn, I think, to talk about it in ways that we can give the people, okay, it's difficult, but we will find solutions. So basically, there are also solutions available. We will just work hard on the solutions and try to put the focus more on the solutions than always just on the threat. And then I know it's difficult, because then you maybe feel a little bit reassured about one point and saying, yeah, there are solutions, like you're building solutions, like these are great examples. And then you turn your head and then you see, oh my God, but there's something else, the world is burning there. And I think that's where people have to have the balance, like to say, okay, I might not know about everything, like you are, I'm focusing on the climate challenge. Other people focus more on the humanitarian crisis in the world, and we just have to calm ourselves down and say, okay, but we know as a society as a whole, we will try to focus on the solutions and to talk about it in a way that is a bit less emotional and more rational, actually, and problem solving. And then I think it's possible.
Yeah, because Donatas, I can imagine if you are looking all the time at this 100%, and at the same time you see that in the United States, one climate measure after the other is taken away, why are you still doing this? Is that not depressing?
It is. Oh, I'm working. Yeah, it is. And but again, I will reflect on that question up there. That resilience grows out of facing the challenges and facing the crisis, not running from it, not hiding from it. Then you feel powerless when you're hiding from it. So power comes from the very state of, challenging that crisis and going through it, withstanding it, And I think that is the thing that we are trying to, or more like a mindset that we are trying to, install into our organization. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry your time is up. Thank you, Tanja, Donatas, Patrícia, and Lana. I think it was a very interesting discussion. The clock is too quick for us, but what to do? Thank you.